My husband smashed a plate on my head in front of everyone. Porcelain and rice exploded across the white tablecloth while the whole family froze, forks in midair. My cheeks stung, my ears rang, and still his voice was louder than the music. "How dare you say no to my mother, you stupid woman?" he yelled. "Sign your apartment over to her." Now, I sat there with gravy in my hair, my hands in my lap. His mother, Lillian, didn't rush to help. She just dabbed her mouth with her napkin like we were talking about the weather, not my home. It was supposed to be a family party. My 70th birthday. Balloons, a store-bought cake, my grandkids sneaking extra frosting. Instead, my husband Mark was towering over me, face red, veins popping in his neck because I said one small word. "No." He grabbed my chair and jerked it back from the table. Glasses rattled, someone gasped. My granddaughter Mia pulled her little brother behind her chair like she could shield him from everything ugly in the room. "Get the papers," Lillian said quietly. "She'll sign if you push harder. She has nothing without you." That made me laugh just a tiny bit. He thought I had nothing without him. Cute. Mark leaned in so close I could smell the beer on his breath. "You're going to sign that apartment over to my mother," he hissed. "You live there because of us. Don't forget who feeds you." Anger twisted in my chest. Part of me wanted to cry, to disappear into the floor. The other part, the older part, just went very, very still. "You have no idea what I can do," I said softly. Silence rolled over the table. The kids stopped whispering. Lillian gave me a tight smile. "Evelyn, don't be dramatic. It's just paperwork. You're old. You don't need that apartment. We'll take care of you." "No," I thought, "you'll lock me up and sell every piece of my life if I let you." That apartment wasn't just walls and windows. It was where I held my son after his first broken heart. The kitchen where I cooked 3 jobs worth of tired out of my bones. The tiny balcony where I watched the city lights and reminded myself I had built this life with my own 2 hands, long before Mark walked in with his fake charm. "Mom, maybe just sign it so we can stop fighting," my son Daniel muttered. He wouldn't look at me, of course. They all thought I was the problem, the stubborn old woman ruining the party. Mark slammed a folder down in front of me. "You're embarrassing yourself," he said. "Be smart for once, sign the papers." I brushed a piece of broken plate off my shoulder. My hands didn't shake, his did. "Mark," I said, keeping my voice calm, "if you ever hit me again in front of my grandchildren, you're going to regret it in ways you can't imagine." He snorted. "What are you gonna do, Evelyn? Yell at me? Move out? You can't even pay for your own groceries without me." Something inside me clicked, not broke, clicked into place, like a lock finally turning. He didn't know I'd kept every little note where he borrowed my pension money for his business ideas. He didn't know about the quiet questions I'd asked at the bank after the first time he called me useless. He didn't know I had already started shifting things around just in case. I picked up the pen, turned the papers toward me, and smiled up at him. His shoulders relaxed, thinking he'd won. Let him think that, I told myself. Let him have this tiny, stupid victory. Because as the ink slid across the page and my fake signature curved into place, I already knew I was done playing nice, and the next move would be mine, not his. When I lifted my head, Mark looked satisfied, like a dog that finally chewed through a shoe. Lillian leaned over, snatched the papers, and slipped them back into the folder like she'd just collected her prize. "See, that wasn't so hard," she said. "We'll get everything filed on Monday." "Yeah," I said, wiping gravy from my forehead with my napkin. "Real easy." My grandson Leo peeked at me from behind Mia. "Grandma, are you okay?" he whispered. I forced a smile. "I'm fine, baby. Grandma's tougher than I look." I'd been tougher than I looked for a long time. While everyone went back to pretending this was a normal dinner, my mind drifted back to when I first met Mark. I was 45, tired from double shifts at the diner, trying to hide the gray streaks in my hair with cheap dye from the drugstore. He walked in all charm and jokes, leaving big tips, calling me pretty lady like it was still 1975. He made me laugh. It felt good at first. Then he moved in. Then slowly my house became our house, my money became our money, but his paycheck stayed his. I didn't notice the pattern until it was already a habit. Him asking to borrow just a bit, him saying my name on the bills doesn't matter, him telling everyone he takes care of me. The first time he called me useless, we were alone in the kitchen. I remember the sting more than the words. The second time he did it in front of his mother. That time she laughed. Lillian had always hated my apartment. "Too much city," she'd say. "You'd be safer living with us." We know what's best for family. What she meant was, give me what you worked for. I watched her across the table now, eyes bright, lips pressed together like she was swallowing a shout of victory. She thought that folder meant she'd won. She had no idea those papers would melt in her hands the second a real lawyer looked at them. Because while Mark was busy calling me stupid, I'd been busy asking questions. 3 months ago, when he accidentally tried to log into my online banking and locked my account, I felt that click inside me for the first time. I went down to the branch in person. The young woman at the desk had kind eyes and a bored tone. "Ma'am, I recommend you don't share this password with anyone," she said, "and maybe consider rearranging a few things just in case." So I did, quietly, no drama. I opened a second account and shifted the numbers just enough to look boring if you didn't know what you were seeing. I moved the apartment paperwork too, into a fireproof box in a place Mark would never check, with a fresh notarized copy that did not match anything he shoved under my nose tonight. "Evelyn," Lillian's voice snapped me back. "Go wash your face, you're scaring the children." I dabbed my cheek where the plate had cut the skin. It stung, but not as much as my pride used to. "I'm not the one they should be scared of," I said quietly. Mia's eyes tracked me as I stood up. She was 12, smart, and too observant for her own good. "Grandma," she mouthed, "you don't look scared." I gave her a tiny wink. In the bathroom, I locked the door, turned on the faucet, and stared at myself in the mirror. Gravy in my hair, a thin red line on my cheek, mascara smudged. 70 years old, and my husband had just broken a plate on my head like I was a misbehaving dog. I laughed, a low, humorless sound. On the back of the door, my coat hung where I'd left it. In the pocket was my old phone, the cheap backup one nobody paid attention to, the one I'd started using to take pictures of little things. Mark's text about needing my pension money again, a photo of my bank statement before and after. The note he left saying he'd handle the bills from now on. Tonight, it also held something else. The small red light from the recorder app I'd tapped before I walked into my own party. I picked it up and checked the screen, recording 1:17 and 43 seconds. Every word, every insult, every plate smashing against my skull. I gently stopped the recording and saved the file. Then I did something I hadn't done in a long time. I smiled at myself. "You have no idea what I can do," I whispered to my reflection, repeating the words I'd said at the table. "But you're about to learn." I slipped the phone back into my coat and unlocked the bathroom door, already planning exactly how I would make both of them pay, and this time I wouldn't just walk away. I would make them crawl. By the time we got home that night, my head throbbed in rhythm with the car engine. Mark didn't say a word on the drive. His knuckles were white on the steering wheel, jaw clenched tight. When we pulled into the driveway, he finally spoke. "You embarrassed me tonight," he said, staring straight ahead. "You made me look like a monster in front of my own family." I let out a short, humorless breath. "You smashed a plate on my head, Mark. You didn't need any help looking like a monster." He turned on me, eyes wide like he couldn't believe I'd said it. "It was an accident. You moved. You always twist things." There it was, the script. I knew it by heart. Inside the house, he switched roles like changing channels. Voice softer, shoulders dropped, hands suddenly gentle. "Babe, come on," he said, reaching for my arm. "You know I don't mean it, you just push my buttons. You know how Mom is about security, she's worried, we're all worried." I pulled my arm back. "About what? Me having my own name on my own home?" He frowned. "You're old, Evelyn, what if something happens to you? Don't you want family to be able to handle things? We're just trying to help." I looked at him, really looked. At the fake concern in his eyes, at the little twitch in his jaw when he lied, at the way he stepped closer like he could crowd me into agreeing. "I already signed, remember?" I said lightly. "Didn't your mom get her prize?" His expression flickered, just for a second, confusion, then something like irritation. "Yeah," he said quickly. "Yeah, well, we'll take care of it." He moved past me and went straight to the bedroom, where he kept his precious folder on the top shelf of his closet like a dragon hoarding worthless paper gold. I waited until I heard the safe click, the little beep of the keypad, the shuffle of documents. Small tell number 1, if everything was so innocent, why did he look worried after he won? The next morning, he walked into the kitchen all smiles and pancakes, whistling like a TV dad. "Made your favorite," he said, sliding a plate toward me. "Chocolate chip. Let's start fresh." I stared at the pancake like it might talk back. My cheek still hurt. My neck felt stiff. He didn't mention the bruise. "You're not going to apologize," I said. "I told you it was an accident," he replied, voice tightening. "You stepped into it. Plates don't fly by themselves, Mark." His smile vanished. He slammed his hand down on the counter, then took a breath and smoothed his hair. "See," he said quietly, "this is why I get upset. You never let things go. You make me the bad guy." "You are the bad guy," I thought. "You just don't like that I finally see it." After he left to run errands, I cleaned the kitchen, then went to sit at the small table by the window with my backup phone. The recording sat there, a silent, ugly little file. I renamed it Party Apartment Threats and backed it up to a secure folder I knew he'd never find. Then I pulled out my regular phone and scrolled through our messages. I'd started saving the worst ones months ago. "You owe me for all I've done. If you don't like it, you can leave, but you'll have nothing. Remember who's in charge of this family." I screenshotted one after another, little digital bruises lined up in a row. Timestamps showed his patterns. Drunk at 11:43 p.m., angry at 6:02 a.m., sweet at 9:15 when he wanted something. Small tell number 2, he always got kind right before he took something from me. By noon, Lillian called. "Evelyn," she said, sugar-coating every syllable, "I've booked an appointment with a notary on Tuesday just to make sure everything is in order. You don't need to come, we'll handle it." My fingers tightened around the phone. "You don't need me to sign anything else?" A pause. "Then we'll just tidy up the details. Nothing for you to worry about. Your family." Family. The word tasted rotten. After we hung up, I walked to my bedroom closet and reached behind the old winter coats. My fireproof box sat where I'd left it. I pulled it out, set it on the bed, and opened it with the small key I wore on a chain under my shirt. Inside were the real documents, the deed with my name only, the notarized statement I'd done at the bank 3 weeks ago, clarifying that no changes could be made without my in-person approval, copies of my ID. A quiet paper wall between me and their greedy hands. I ran my fingers along the edge of the deed and smiled. They thought they were playing chess with a senile pawn. I was playing a different game. And I hadn't even started being cruel yet. As I locked the box again and slid it back into the shadows, a new idea started forming, slow and sharp. If Mark and his mother were so eager to take everything from me, maybe it was time I showed them what it really felt like to lose. The next Sunday I baked a pie, not because I forgave anyone, because people dropped their guard around comfort food and I needed everyone soft and sleepy while I sharpened my plans. I carried the warm apple pie into the dining room like nothing had changed. Mark was on the couch, half watching a game, half scrolling his phone. Lillian sat in the armchair she'd decided was hers, shoes off, bossing the TV volume like she lived here. "Wow," Mark said, "what's the occasion?" "It's Sunday," I said, "family day, thought I'd treat my providers." He grinned, missing the bite in my voice. Lillian didn't miss it. Her eyes narrowed just a touch, then smoothed over. "We appreciate it," she said. "You know it's not too late to move in with us. We'll make sure that apartment doesn't go to waste." "Oh, I'm sure you will," I said, setting the pie on the table. While it cooled, I walked to the little desk by the window and opened the drawer where we kept the mail. I had started paying attention to the envelopes weeks ago. Names, dates, how often they came. There was a new one now. A thick, official-looking envelope with Mark's name on it, past due stamped in red. "Mark," I called casually, "you got something from the bank." He glanced over, then shrugged. "Just junk." "I'll look later." I turned the envelope between my fingers. The weight told me it wasn't junk. The tiny knot in his jaw told me he knew that too. Small tell number 3. The man who liked to act in charge suddenly forgot his own mail. I set it down exactly where he couldn't ignore it, right next to his plate. "Pie's ready," I said. We ate in a strange kind of peace. The kids came by for a few hours, brought by my son Daniel like he was doing charity work. "Mom," he said quietly while the kids were in the yard, "I talked to Dad. He feels bad about the plate thing." "Does he?" I asked. "He said it just got out of hand. You know how Grandma Lillian gets with money stuff. Maybe if you just tried to be easier, it wouldn't blow up like that." There it was, the knife slipped right between my ribs, carried by my own child. "Daniel," I said, keeping my voice calm, "if your wife's family asked you to sign your house over to them, would you?" He hesitated, just a second. Then his shoulders dropped. "That's different." "No," I said, "it's not." He looked away. "I just don't want more drama. The kids get scared." I watched him through new eyes. He was still my boy, but he'd learned how to stay safe by siding with the loudest voice in the room. It wasn't going to save him this time. When they left, I stood at the window and watched Mark hug our grandkids like he was some gentle teddy bear. Lillian stood behind him, hand on his shoulder, the picture of supportive motherhood. If anyone else looked in, they'd think I was the problem. Good, I thought, let them. That night, I waited until Mark was snoring on the couch with the game still playing. I walked over, took the envelope from the table, and quietly opened it in the kitchen. Past due, 3 months behind on a personal loan I didn't know about. My name wasn't on it. His alone. I checked the fine print. Interest climbing, penalties stacking, final notice. Well, I whispered. You've been busy. I didn't take a picture. I didn't need to. I slid the letter back into the envelope and put it exactly where it had been. Then I picked up my backup phone and opened the recorder app again. The next day, I sat at the kitchen table with a mug of coffee while Mark paced, phone to his ear. What do you mean you can't extend it? He snapped. I've been a customer for years. I tilted the mug to hide my smile and let the recorder run. He hung up hard, then turned to me like I'd caused the problem by breathing. Everything okay? I asked sweetly. Money's tight, he muttered. I need you to be smart, no more random spending, no nonsense, okay? We're a family. Sure, I said. We're a team, right? He nodded, relaxing. He had no idea I already knew exactly how broken his team really was. That evening, after he left to clear his head, I made another quiet move. I walked 2 blocks to the corner cafe and sat in the back booth with my coffee and my backup phone. I scrolled to my contacts and tapped on a name I hadn't used in years. Hey, I said when she picked up. It's Evelyn. Remember how you told me if I ever needed help, real help, I should call you? On the other end, my old neighbor's voice turned sharp and awake. Yeah, honey, you finally ready? Oh, I'm ready, I said, eyes drifting to the street where Mark's car was just a dot in the distance. And I'm done being nice. Because if Mark and Lillian thought they were going to strip me of everything I'd built, they were about to find out what it feels like when someone older, quieter, and a hell of a lot smarter decides to strip you back instead, layer by layer. My old neighbor, Rita, showed up at the cafe in 10 minutes flat. She walked in like a storm in cheap sneakers, short, wide, gray hair in a messy bun, glasses hanging from a chain. Same no-nonsense look she wore back when we used to share a laundry room and life stories. Jesus, Evelyn, she said, sliding into the booth. You sound worse on the phone than you looked after your hip surgery. What happened? I told her, not in soft, careful words. I told her about the plate, about the party, about the papers, about Lillian's greedy hands and Mark's fake accident. I told her about the loan letter, the bank visit, the hidden account, the recordings. Rita didn't interrupt much, her jaw tightened. Her eyes got harder every few minutes. When I finished, she leaned back and let out a long breath. He hit you in front of the kids, she said. He tried to steal your home. And he's drowning in debt he didn't tell you about. That about right? Yes. And he thinks you're old and dumb. Yes. Rita smiled then, not a nice smile, a sharp one. Good, she said. Let him keep thinking that. I raised an eyebrow. Got something in mind? You remember what I do now? She asked. I know you work at the courthouse, I said. You always joked about swimming in paperwork. She nodded. I work in records, I see everything. Divorce filings, debt cases, liens, evictions. I can't break the law for you, but I can tell you how the game works. And if he wants to play dirty, we can play colder. I took a sip of my coffee. I'm listening. Rita pulled out a small notebook. First, she said, you stop feeding him, not food, power, money, access. I've already moved my pension, I said. Good, next step, you stop signing anything, ever. If they shove paper in your face, you smile and say, I'll think about it, then walk away. And you keep every message, every slip, every threat. I tapped my backup phone. Already recording, she grinned. Knew I liked you? We spent the next hour going over the pieces like we were building a puzzle. Mark's secret loan, his temper in public, Lillian's push for my apartment, Daniel's no more drama excuse. You know what men like that fear most? Rita asked. Not jail, not God, being seen, being really seen for who they are. So we show him, I said. Oh, we will, she replied. But first, we let him dig his own hole a little deeper. That afternoon, I made myself small, harmless. I waited at home with tea and cookies when Mark came in, shoulders tight from whatever calls he'd been making. How was your day? I asked, sweet as sugar, Stressful, he said. You wouldn't understand. Probably not, I agreed. I'm just old, remember? He blinked like he couldn't tell if I was joking. I let him talk. About how unfair the bank was, how ungrateful Daniel had been lately, how soft the grandkids were. Every complaint was another string I could pull later. That night I sat on the edge of the bed and asked, Mark, do you want me to move in with you and your mom eventually? He looked surprised. Well, yeah, that was the idea. Less rent, less bills, you wouldn't have to worry about anything. I nodded slowly. Then maybe you should put all the bills in your name now, get used to it. The utilities, the cable. Show me how much you take care of me. His chest puffed up. He liked the sound of that. Yeah, he said, that makes sense. I'll handle everything. You just relax. He had no clue I was handing him a rope, not a gift. Over the next 2 weeks, he moved one bill after another into his own name. He bragged about it. To me, to Lillian, to anyone who would listen. I pay for everything, he'd say. She'd be lost without me? Rita texted me each time I told her about a change. Good, she wrote. Let him stack it all on his back. In the middle of those weeks, Lillian called again. We're moving quickly with the apartment, she said. The notary was very understanding. I'm glad, I replied softly. I just want everyone safe. Oh, they will be, she said. When we hung up, I didn't cry, I didn't shake. I just opened my fireproof box, checked my real documents, kissed the edge of the deed like it was an old friend, and put it back. Then I did something extra. I printed a clean copy of the deed and a simple statement. Any document signed by me after date concerning this property is invalid and was done under pressure and threat. I tucked that into the box too. Cruel doesn't always mean loud, Rita had told me. Sometimes it means letting them walk full speed into a wall they never saw because they were too busy looking down on you. We met again at the cafe on Friday. I handed her a thumb drive. Recording texts, pictures, and notes, I said. Everything. She slipped it into her pocket. Good girl, now we set the stage. What stage? I asked. The one where he thinks he's finally going to win, she said. We'll give him an audience, and then we'll rip the mask right off his face. She pulled out her phone, opened her calendar, and circled a date 2 weeks away. That's the day, she said quietly. That's when your nice little husband and his loving mama find out what happens when the stupid old woman stops playing nice. The day Rita circled on her calendar came faster than I expected. 2 weeks of pretending. 2 weeks of smiling while Mark strutted around calling himself the man of the house. 2 weeks of listening to Lillian talk about when we finally get that apartment sold like it was already in her purse. I let them talk. I let them brag. I let them dig. Evelyn, Mark said one evening, tossing his keys on the counter, Mom thinks we should have a little get-together, just family. We'll announce everything so people stop asking questions. Announce what? I asked, even though I already knew the answer. That you're moving in with us eventually, he said. That you put the apartment where it belongs, in family hands. People need reassurance. What a sweet idea, I said. Let's do it. His chest puffed up. He had no idea I'd already invited a few guests of my own. When the day came, I wore my nicest blue dress and the pearl earrings I bought for myself after my first big tip at the diner. I wanted to look like exactly what they thought I was, an old woman who didn't know her own power. Lillian arrived early, carrying a casserole and that smug little smile. Smile, Evelyn, she said, setting the dish on my counter like she owned it. This is a happy day. We're just making sure everything's settled before you know. Slow down. I'm still walking, not rolling, I said, but sure. Let's settle things. Guests started to arrive. Daniel with the kids, a couple of Mark's cousins, his loud friend Gary who always laughed too hard at Mark's jokes. The living room filled with voices and cologne and cheap perfume. Then right on time, my guests walked in. Rita first in her courthouse badge and comfortable shoes. Behind her, a woman in a neat blazer with a thin folder tucked under her arm. This is Carla, Rita said loudly enough for the room to hear. She's a legal aid advocate. She works with seniors. I thought maybe she could help explain some things, seeing as there's been a lot of paperwork flying around. The room went a little quieter. Mark's head snapped around. Why did you invite? I invited her, I cut in. It's my home, I can invite who I like. Carla nodded politely. Just here to answer questions, she said. No need to be nervous. Lillian's smile cracked. Is that really necessary? She asked. This is a family matter. That's what worries me, Rita muttered, but only I heard. We all squeezed into the living room. I sat in my usual chair, the one by the window. Mark stood by the TV, Lillian next to him like his shadow. Daniel hovered with his arms folded, looking uncomfortable. Okay, Mark said, clapping his hands once. Thanks for coming, everyone. We just wanted to clear up some confusion about Mom's future. She's been forgetful lately. My eyebrows went up, that was one word for it. We've taken steps to make sure she's safe, Lillian chimed in. You all know she lives alone in that apartment. It's too much responsibility, so she's signed it over to us. For her own good? She looked right at me, daring me to argue. I smiled. That's a lie, I said calmly. The silence that fell was thicker than any scream. What did you say? Mark snapped. I said you're lying, I repeated. And I'm tired of pretending you're not. Mia and Leo exchanged a quick, startled glance. Gary shifted in his seat. Daniel frowned. Mom, this really isn't the time, he started. It's exactly the time, I cut in. I pulled my backup phone from my pocket and held it up. Because I'm done being the quiet old lady you can push around. Mark laughed a little too loudly. What, you're gonna call the cops on your own family? No, I said. I'm going to let everyone hear you in your own words. I tapped the screen and turned the volume up. The room filled with our party from 2 weeks ago, Mark's voice drunk and loud. How dare you say no to my mother, you stupid woman? The sound of porcelain shattering, gasps, a child crying in the background, my own voice steady and low. You have no idea what I can do. Lillian went pale. Mark lunged forward. Turn that off, he barked. Carla stepped between us, her face still calm. Don't touch her, she said. She has every right to play that. I let the recording run, every insult, every threat, every time he said I was nothing without him. When it ended, the room was dead quiet. Daniel's face looked like it was made of stone. The kids stared at their father like they'd never seen him before. Gary looked away. I tripped, Mark said hoarsely. The plate slipped. She moved. That recording is out of context. I held up my other hand, the one with the thumb drive Rita had helped me make. This isn't, I said. This has texts, bank screenshots, voice messages, and copies of my real apartment papers. The ones you don't have. Rita smiled, slow and mean. That's right, she said. Your little paperwork trick, cute. It's also worthless. You never had her apartment, not for a second. Lillian finally lost her calm. You stupid old witch, she snapped. You said you signed. I did sign, I said. Just not my real name. Turns out I'm not as stupid as you hoped. Mark's face twisted, ugly and red. You think this changes anything? He spat. You live because of me, you eat because of me, No, I said, standing up slowly. I lived before you, I'll live after you. And now everyone here knows exactly what you are. I looked around the room at every pair of eyes watching him. And if you think this is the worst thing I'm going to do to you, I added softly, you really haven't been paying attention. For a moment, nobody moved. The recording's last echo hung in the air like smoke. You could almost see people replaying it in their heads, lining up what they just heard with the man standing in front of them. Gary cleared his throat. Damn man, he muttered. You actually said all that? Mark's jaw flexed. It's not what it sounds like, he snapped. You know how women twist things. She pushed me, she always pushes me. Mia stepped closer to me, her little chin up, voice shaking but steady. You hit Grandma, she said. That's what it sounded like. Leo gripped her hand tighter. Even at 8, he understood enough. Daniel finally spoke, voice low. Dad, you told me it was an accident. You never said you called her stupid. You never said you threatened her? It was the heat of the moment, Mark said. His eyes darted around like he was looking for an exit that didn't exist. You should all be thanking me. I'm making sure she doesn't mess everything up in her old age. Carla stepped forward, that neat folder still tucked under her arm. For the record, she said, what I just heard is verbal abuse and a physical assault. If Mrs. Evelyn chooses to, she can make this very official, very fast. Lillian snapped her head toward me. You wouldn't, she hissed. We're family. I turned to Carla. Can I speak plainly? I asked. Please do, she said. I'm not here to send him to jail, I said. That would be too easy. I'm here to make sure he never again uses my name, my home, or my money as a weapon. Carla nodded slowly as if she understood exactly how sharp that was. Rita pulled something from her bag and held it up. In case anyone's wondering, she said, this is a certified copy of Evelyn's property deed and notarized statement. I had it checked at the courthouse. No changes, no transfers. No family arrangement. She owns that apartment. Alone. Daniel stared at the paper like it was a bomb. Mom, why didn't you tell me? He whispered. Because you chose not to hear me when I tried before, I said gently. You wanted things quiet, easy, no drama. This is what no drama looks like after it festers. Lillian's face twisted. You sneaky old, I raised my hand and she actually stopped. Careful, I said softly. You're already starring in one recording. You want a sequel? The room gave a nervous, bitter little laugh. I turned to Mark. You like saying you take care of everything, right? That you pay all the bills, handle all the grown-up stuff? He puffed up even now. Someone has to, he muttered. Good, I said. Then you won't mind handling them somewhere else. He frowned. What? I walked to the front door, opened it wide, and pointed out into the hallway. Get out of my house, Mark. He laughed, waiting for the punchline. It didn't come. You can't kick me out, he said. I've invested in this place for years. I bought that couch, that TV. You put the utilities in your name, I cut in. Because you wanted to look like a hero, all the mail proves it. The loan is in your name. The late notices are in your name. You wanted the credit, keep it, all of it. Rita whistled under her breath. Carla opened her folder. Legally, this is her home, she said. There's recorded evidence of abuse. If she wants you out, you're out. And if you don't go peacefully, trust me, the papers I can file will make your life very, very small. Lillian grabbed his arm. We don't need this place, she said quickly. Let's go, we'll sort it out later. We still have the apartment papers? No, you don't, I said. You have trash with fake ink on it. You have nothing that holds up anywhere that matters. Daniel finally moved, stepping in between me and his father. Dad, he said quietly, voice shaking, maybe you should go, take some time, figure yourself out. Oh, that's great, Mark exploded. You're taking her side now after everything I did for you? I'm taking my kid's side, Daniel shot back. And they're scared of you? That landed. You could see it. Mark's eyes flicked to Mia and Leo. They didn't move toward him. They held on to each other and onto the arm of my chair. He swallowed hard. This isn't over, he said to me, voice low and ugly. I stepped closer, close enough to see the sweat on his forehead. Oh, sweetheart, I murmured. For you, it's just getting started. He grabbed his keys off the table with shaking hands. Lillian muttered something about ungrateful parasites, and after all we tried to do, they stalked out together, slamming the door like they owned it. But they didn't. The silence afterward was thick. Everyone stared at me like I'd just pulled a rabbit and a loaded gun out of my purse at the same time. Carla broke it first. You okay? She asked. I sat back down slowly. Not yet, I said. But I will be, because kicking him out was only the first cut. The next ones were going to hurt a lot more, and this time I was aiming straight for the parts of him he cared about most. The first night without Mark in the house was quiet. No TV blasting. No heavy footsteps stomping down the hall. No muttering about how expensive everything was while he opened another beer. I made myself a cup of tea, sat at the table, and spread out my little war map, papers, notes, my phone, Rita's scribbled list. Step 1 had been getting him out. Step 2 was making sure he stayed out with nowhere soft to land. The next morning, I called the utility companies one by one. Hi, this is Evelyn, I said in my sweetest voice. My husband, Mark, moved out. The accounts are in his name now. I just want to confirm my name is nowhere on the contracts and that all correspondence goes to his current address. They were more than happy to help. I gave them Lillian's address. Slowly, carefully, I redirected every single little headache straight to their doorstep. Electric, gas, cable, internet. If he wanted to brag that he handled everything, then he could handle the bills showing up in his mailbox at once like a swarm of angry bees. Rita texted me later. How'd it go? Messy, I replied, which is exactly what I wanted. While I was at it, I called the bank where his past due loan lived. I'm not on that account, I said. But I want a note in your system that my pension and property are separate. He doesn't speak for me. He doesn't live here anymore. The woman on the line hesitated, then lowered her voice. Understood, ma'am, she said. We'll update the file, and thank you for calling. You're not the first spouse to do this. It wasn't just about the money, it was about cutting his favorite story off at the knees. No more we're a team, no more she'd be nothing without me. On paper, in every system that mattered, I was not his. By the end of the week, the calls started, first from Mark. "Did you mess with the utilities?" he barked. "They said the billing address changed." "I told them where you live now," I said calmly. "You're the man in charge, remember? You're trying to ruin me," he snapped. "Oh, Mark," I said, voice soft. "You're doing a fine job of that on your own." Then from Lillian, "How dare you drag us into your drama?" she hissed. "We're getting all kinds of mail because of you, late notices, bills. Threats? You wanted to be responsible for me," I said. "Looks like you got your wish." "You witch," she spat. "No wonder your own husband left." "He didn't leave," I said. "He was removed." I hung up before she could answer. Then I blocked her number. The satisfaction was small but delicious. Next came the part Rita had warned me would feel both cruel and clean. "His job," she'd said. "Men like that care more about looking good at work than being good at home. You don't have to lie, you just show the truth." So I did. I didn't call to scream, I called HR. "Hello," I said, using my calmest, concerned grandma voice. "I'm Mark's wife. I know you can't share much with me, but I thought you should be aware that he's been struggling. There was an incident at a family event in front of kids. He broke a plate on my head while trying to force me to sign over my home. I have the recording. If his behavior ever spills into work, I didn't want you blindsided." The woman on the other end went very quiet. "Ma'am," she said slowly, "thank you for letting us know. If you're willing to email that recording, we'll document it. We have policies about this kind of thing." "No problem," I said. "I'll send it as concerned information, not a complaint. Whatever you decide to do with it is up to you." But we both knew what a file like that could do. A week later, Mark called again, voice ragged. "Did you send something to my job?" he demanded. "I told the truth," I said. "You always said you're not ashamed of anything you do. Prove it." "They pulled me into a meeting," he snapped. "HR, union rep, they said there are concerns." "Do you know what that does to my reputation?" "Yes," I said. "That's why I did it?" For the first time, he didn't have a comeback. He just breathed hard into the phone like a bull that finally felt the fence. I wasn't done. Family used to hear his version of everything first, so I changed the channel. I took the recording from the party and a few choice screenshots of his texts, and sent them in a group thread to the same relatives who'd watched him play victim all these years. Since everyone's been asking, I typed, "Here's what really happened the night of my birthday. I'm fine now. He doesn't live here anymore. Please stop asking me to be nice for the sake of peace. This is what your peace looks like on my face." I put the phone down and let the messages do their work. By evening, my screen was full of shocked replies, apologies, awkward silence from the ones who'd sided with him. Daniel showed up at my door the next day alone. "Dad says you're trying to destroy his life," he said, shoulders slumped. I looked him right in the eye. "No, I'm just finally getting out of the way so he can destroy it himself." He flinched. "I didn't know," he whispered. "I mean, I knew he was rough, but I didn't think." "You didn't want to think," I corrected. "Now you don't get that excuse." He swallowed, nodding slowly. "Is there anything I can do?" he asked. "Yes," I said. "Protect your kids from him until he proves he's safe. I won't stop you from seeing your father. But my grandchildren do not step into a room alone with that man until he's done a whole lot more than say sorry." It hurt him. I could see it, but I watched him agree anyway. That was another piece of Mark's comfort gone. No more easy grandparent visits to make him look good. Money, comfort, pride, family, one by one I'd started pulling them away. And I still had one last card to play, the one that would make sure he never again stood in a room and talked about me like I was the one who should be afraid. 3 weeks after I kicked Mark out, the envelope showed up. Not at my door, at his mother's, but Lillian, being who she was, couldn't resist calling me anyway. "This is your fault," she snapped the second I answered. "They suspended him. No pay while they investigate. Do you know what that does to us?" I leaned back in my chair, looking at the quiet apartment that was still mine. "I imagine," I said. "It makes things difficult." "Difficult," she screeched. "We can't cover his loan and the house and the bills with just my pension. They're talking about garnishing his wages when he goes back, if he goes back." "That's rough," I said. "Almost like, I don't know, suddenly losing control of money and home you counted on." "You vindictive witch," she spat. "You're destroying your own husband." "He destroyed himself," I said. "I just stopped standing in front of the blast for him." I hung up before she could spit more poison. That night, I sat at my kitchen table with Rita and Carla. We had coffee, cookies, and a stack of papers between us, formal, neat, and full of little boxes where power changed hands. "You're sure?" Carla asked gently, tapping the top document. "Yes," I said. "I want his name off everything. Bank, emergency contact, will, pension. If I end up in a hospital, I don't want that man making one decision about whether I breathe or not." "Then sign here," she said. I did, slowly, carefully, no fake name this time. "Just mine. Divorce isn't easy at your age," Carla said, "but with what you've got recorded plus witnesses, you're in a strong position. He doesn't get your apartment. He doesn't get your pension. Honestly, he's lucky if he walks away without owing you." "I don't care about the legal revenge," I said. "I care that he never again introduces himself as the man who takes care of me." "Oh, he won't," Rita snorted. "Not after HR, his family, and half the neighborhood know he's the guy who smashed a plate on his wife's head over a deed he never even had." We filed what needed filing, signed what needed signing, sent what needed sending. My last card wasn't a scream or a slap or a public meltdown. It was a quiet piece of paper that said, in very plain words, "You don't own me anymore." A month later, I ran into Mark and Lillian by accident in the grocery store. Or maybe it wasn't an accident. This city isn't that big and the universe has a petty streak. They both looked older. Lillian's hair was messier, her lipstick crooked. Mark's shirt was wrinkled, his eyes red like he hadn't slept well in weeks. "Look who it is," Lillian muttered. "The queen herself." Mark didn't say anything at first, just stared at me like I was a ghost who refused to stay buried. "How's work?" I asked lightly. His jaw clenched. "They moved me off my usual route," he said flatly. "No more overtime, no more training gigs. They said my behavior outside of work is a concern." "Actions have consequences," I said. "They teach that in preschool, you know," Lillian sniffed. "We still have each other, we don't need you." "I never said you did," I replied. "In fact, that's exactly what I'm counting on." Mark finally spoke, the words coming out like he'd been chewing on them for days. "You turned everyone against me," he said. "My job, my kid, my family, you made me look like a monster." I stepped closer until there was hardly any space between us. His breath smelled like stale coffee and anger. "I didn't make you look like anything," I said quietly. "I just held up a mirror." His hands tightened on the cart handle. He wanted to yell. He wanted a scene. He wanted the old script, me backing down, apologizing, patching it over for the sake of peace and family. I turned away. At the end of the aisle, I saw Mia and Leo waiting with Daniel by the frozen pizzas. When they saw me, their faces lit up. They ran straight past their grandfather and threw their arms around my waist. "Grandma," Leo shouted. "Dad said we can stay over tonight?" "Yeah," Mia grinned. "We brought popcorn and the movie you like, the funny one, not the sad one." Daniel gave me a small, tired smile. It wasn't perfect between us, not yet. But his eyes were clear now. He'd stopped asking me to stay quiet for peace. "Ready to go, Mom?" he asked. I glanced back at Mark and Lillian, two people who had planned to strip me of everything I'd built, now standing under the harsh grocery store lights with a half-empty cart and nowhere to put their anger. "Yeah," I said, "I'm ready." We walked out together, my grandchildren on either side, their small hands wrapped around my arms. Outside, the air was cool and sharp. I could feel my own key warm against my chest where it hung on its chain. The key to the home I'd fought for, the life I'd rebuilt without him. When I closed my apartment door behind us that night and slid the deadbolt into place, the sound it made was small, clean, and final. It sounded exactly like revenge. Watch next, pick a video on screen, and hit subscribe. Thank you so much, guys, for your support. Comment your name with your city. I will give you a shout out in next video.